Hello everybody and welcome to Motorsport Live and episode 1 of our weekly Motorsport Roundup show. So in this weekly show we are going to look back at the weekend of action and kind of look at some cool stories, some fun stories, and kind of come up with a theme that we're going to run throughout this episode. We're going to do that each week, and it's certainly not going to focus on F1 every time. We will certainly kind of reflect on a couple of the results, but we'll be aiming to look at other areas of motorsport basically. So I do hope that you've enjoyed the weekend of motorsport. There was certainly plenty going on. Certain highlights were definitely that the Isle of Man TT kicked off in earnest with the Superbike race on Saturday. And of course we had Michael Dunlop retaining his kind of title as King of the Mountain currently without John McGuinness around. We also had things like the DTM from Hungary. We had the TCR UK Championship, which is obviously new for this year from the Brands Hatch circuit. We're going to come on to coverage of that later in this episode. And also an honourable mention to the Virtual Endurance Championship, which was, they ran a 24-hour race of Le Mans on R Factor 2, which is part of a endurance championship, which was great to see. And again, we'll come on to that a bit later on, but I do hope that you managed to take in some of that. And again, across all the different channels that it is available on, not just mainstream media these days, because there's a lot of live streaming on YouTube and Facebook going on, which is great to see. My personal highlight of the weekend was the Erzberg Rodeo Hare Scramble, which is part of the new World Enduro Super Series. That's it. I knew I'd get it. But basically it is a Enduro Championships, and for those of you who might not know what Enduro is, it is done on a motorbike, and basically the premise is it's kind of a cross between a rally and like motocross. So they ride on motocross bikes predominantly that are slightly tuned, you could say, but they ride kind of from point to point as opposed to around a track. This one, for example, is kind of the jewel in the crown of the series, and it's held in Austria in a iron mine, and basically they go up all of the near vertical sections. I'll put some footage on the screen while I'm talking about it so you can kind of see what I mean. But they go up all the gradients. There's also fast sections. They drive through full-on boulder gardens. Carl's Dinner is what one of the sections is called, which is the most famous section. They also, drive through woodlands. They drive, as I said, kind of flat out along flat sections. They go like straight down, straight up, and there's a lot of help that is required to get through the course. And the winners, I think, did it in just under 2 hours, and that was to cover 31 kilometers. So you can understand how difficult that would be. That's with an engine, so it is full on. It is one of the most intense motorsport events in the world, in my opinion. The reason that I've picked this as a focus for the episode is because it does something that is very rare in motorsport, and I'd like to see more. It puts amateurs against pros. So in the Erzberg Rodeo, there are 500 people that compete in the final race. Now, the top 30 are professionals. They are factory backed by, KTM or Husqvarna, companies like that, and they take a team, they have crew, they're given all the equipment, they have brand new bikes, as you'd expect in any motorsport with a team that's run by, a manufacturer. So you've got that group, but they go off in stages. So there's, I think it might be 30 or 50 riders at a time, I can't remember, get set off in a few minute intervals so that they're staggered. So the first couple of waves, are these professionals, but then everybody beyond that are amateurs. And amateurs, I don't mean kind of people who've never sat on a motorbike before. I mean amateurs as in people who are into motocross or enduro but do it as a hobby. They might go to small events at the weekends, they might just like to ride it, they don't, they fund themselves. It's a hobby basically, and they mechanic themselves or they bring their mate. And they get to challenge themselves against the course in exactly the same conditions at the same time as professionals, which in motorsport is unbelievably rare, which makes me sad, because it's always kind of, when you watch a professional on TV or live even, they make it look very easy because it's what they're good at, whereas this shows how hard it is. Even the first hill, so they start off from a standing start, they go across the floor of the mine, and then they just go straight up, go up the side of this mine. And the first, as I said, the first wave of people find it relatively simple. They'll just go straight up it. But then they show this amateur feed, which again shows the people further back. And some of them don't even get up the first hill. They'll get halfway up, they'll roll down, their bike will break. And it just shows how difficult it is, which I think is great. And all the way through, the live stream by Red Bull lasted for over 4 hours. And there were still people on the track. I think I said about 500 people start, and it's normally kind of 40 or 50 people who actually finish. It's that difficult, and all of the or vast majority of professionals will finish it. They might get outside help, like Tadej Blazusiak, one of the favourites. He actually broke his exhaust, but obviously his team then came and fixed it. He then still managed to come 8th, having gone the wrong way, crashed, break his exhaust, had to refuel, all of that, and he still managed to come 8th. It just shows how difficult it is for these amateurs. And I mean, fair play for having a go, but what it kind of led me to think is, why doesn't this happen more often? Because it's a great yardstick to kind of show yourself against professionals. The only other example that I can really think of, that's a high level motorsport that, amateurs there's two actually, that amateurs go against professionals, and that is the Paris-Dakar Rally, which again is similar in terms of, but it's a rally over multiple days, very famous event, and the Isle of Man TT, which is also currently going on at the moment. Now, the Isle of Man TT is slightly different because obviously it's a road race as opposed to being off-road. But again, it's the same. The people who also compete are amateurs in terms of they're not professional racing bikers. Yeah, they're not professional racers, and so you can class them as amateurs. Again, on the same track at the same time, but they don't get any coverage that I can see, other than maybe some GoPro footage on their own YouTube channel, for example, or Facebook page. So that's an example. And Paris-Dakar, again, it's such a massive event that to get the funds to do that, I would say that you have to either be extremely rich or you have to be a professional. So I would put Erzberg kind of in its own category there, unless I've forgotten any. If I have forgotten any, then let me know. But I was kind of thinking, well, why? Why can't this happen more often? So the main reasons why this can't happen is kind of circuit racing. Obviously you're going around a track, and in endurance racing, that's probably the closest you get is something like the 24-hour series or the endurance series, like the Dubai 24 hours or the Imola 12 hours that was on recently. Again, you get smaller teams, but that's because the difference between the fastest cars and the slowest cars aren't that great. They're probably lapping 20 seconds a lap or so slower than the fastest guys, so it's not dangerous. Whereas if you went somewhere like Le Mans and you had hundreds of people on the track and people were rocking up in their Renault Clio Cup car, against LMP1 and LMP2 cars, it would be dangerous, and people wouldn't be able to get out of the way quick enough. And it's kind of like that in the Nürburgring 24 hours, but the circuit's so long, it kind of negates that. And that's what kind of brings me on to the next bit, is that all of these events like the Isle of Man TT, the Paris-Dakar and the Erzberg, they're all point to point, so they're not overtaking each other and getting in each other's way. And I think that's the key thing. If you have it on a circuit, it's very difficult to make it happen. You can have it in different stages or sections where people are on the track at different times, but to be on the same track at the same time, you can only really do it over long distance racing from point to point. It can't be on a circuit, which is such a shame, because everybody always wants to see how difficult it is, and everyone goes, yeah, I'm an amazing driver, I'll be better than these, why are they going so slow? And it would be great to be able to prove that, but I don't see it happening, unfortunately. But I thought it was quite an interesting thread to go along and discuss, and let me know if you've taken part in any activities where a pro has turned up, because these motorbike races and certainly off-road races will take part in smaller events. They might use a different name, like Kimi Räikkönen has famously entered snowmobile races and things like that, and there's certainly been MotoGP riders who've entered track days and things like that. So if you've experienced anything of that, then please let me know, because I do want to hear it, because I do really like the idea of professionals versus amateurs and showing that difference and what it takes to be a top-line athlete, somebody who trains every day of the week for it, as opposed to somebody who works during the week and then has a play at the weekend, which is ultimately what amateurs are. And finally, what we're going to do at the end of each of these weekly episodes is we are going to give a spotlight to motorsport channels, either on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or wherever it be online, to kind of bring their attention to you, or bring your attention to them, should I say. So these are, they're either teams or series or, championship organisers who've set up YouTube channels and put out great content across those. And again, they just don't get the spotlight that they deserve. So hopefully, going forward, this is the sort of thing that we want to do. So the first ever YouTube channel that we are going to put the spotlight on is the BRSCC channel, which is the British Racing and Sports Car Club. Yeah, that's right. And the reason I put this on was because while I was watching Erzberg and DTM and IndyCar on YouTube, plug them as well, I also noticed that the BRSCC was live streaming, so I took a look at that, and the TCR UK Championship was on, and I was like, great, that's a smaller championship in the UK. It's the new championship with the new TCR rules, which the World Touring Cars has gone to, so there is also a UK championship, and I guess it is slightly different to the BTCC, the British Touring Car Championship, because the style of cars is a bit different. These are more kind of hatchbacks as opposed to saloons, but they're a different set of rules ultimately. And they live streamed pretty much all day from Brands Hatch in the UK, a great circuit down in Kent, and the live stream with full commentary all the way through. And not only that, did you get like the headline of the TCR UK, they had loads of other championships, again being broadcast live with commentators. So what else was there? There was Mazda MX-5 racing, which is just nuts. People just fire each other off left, right and centre, and to be honest, some of the racing is debatable, but it is fun to watch. There's also historic Formula Fords, there's historic touring car races on there, and there's all of this being broadcast for free on YouTube with full commentary. What's not to like? And with technology these days of being able to get YouTube on your TV, or cast it from your phone onto your TV, you can sit back, if the championship that you were watching on mainstream media has gone off, then you can just switch to that and you get it for free. It's mind-blowing to me. But I will put a link to put a link in the description to their channel, so please do go and subscribe if you're into live motorsport. And they also post highlights on there throughout the time. So hopefully you'll have seen this on the screen while I've been talking. But yeah, they are the first people that we wanted to put a spotlight on, the BRSCC. So hopefully you go and check them out, and hopefully you've enjoyed this first ever episode of this Motorsport weekly roundup. I haven't quite come up with a name yet, but we'll get there. So this is going to be a weekly occurrence. This will arrive at the same time that this one is on now. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please do subscribe, and there will be this on again next week, and we should be starting to roll out some other sporadic episodes as well, which if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at motorsportlife_ on Twitter, and at motorsportlifeofficial on Instagram, again linked in the description, you'll know when they're coming up. But again, thank you so much for watching. Please do go and enjoy motorsport, but do it safely. But for now, thank you very much. Bye bye.